These are the 16 most malicious and disturbing devil fruits in One Piece. These are the powers that were directly engineered for suffering, and suffering in some concerningly creative ways as well. For example, the Autonomy, a devil fruit that allows its user Jola to transform people, objects, and even herself into art. A lot of online descriptions of this devil fruit state that it needs to be specifically abstract or modern art, but in the series it's never actually stated. It's more likely that abstract art is Jola's preference, and if you preferred, say, French Impressionism, then you'd be able to transform people into some of Monet's haystacks. Or if you are Marcel Duchamp, then you could turn people into lazily sourced urinals. Like art itself, this is a highly subjective devil fruit, which means that more so than most, it really is only limited by the imagination of the user, which is concerning because artists can be some of the scariest people on the planet, as their motivations can very much slip into that abstract realm. Jola, for example, is a practitioner of dying art, where her main goal is to trap people within her works, suffocate them, and then add the work to her, quote, permanent collection. And Jola combats any criticism of this, usually from her victims, by stating that they simply do not understand the meaning of art. So it's a sandbox fruit used by an incredibly disturbed mind. However, it was ultimately overcome by Brook, who defeated Jola and said, "Forgive me, I don't know much about art after all. I don't really have an eye for it," because he literally has no eyes. Or most of a body, which is a big help against the Shibonomi, which means ring fruit, that being ring with a W, like the thing it is you do with a wet towel, which is the exact thing this fruit's user Charlotte Smoothie does to people, animals, and objects. She wrings them out in order to extract their tasty juices. Charlotte Smoothie is described as a dehydration or evaporation human. So the core idea behind the power is to remove liquid. And there may very well be other methods of doing this, but Smoothie chooses what seems to be the most torturous way possible. However, on the bright side, Smoothie has a whole bar where she serves drink based on these juices that she extracts, with the menu including Mount Mori Lava, Babe Who Stabbed 100 Men, and my personal favorite, Weird Screaming Giraffe. And Stussy elected to taste the giraffe, noting that it was both tasty and smooth. But there are some very important and very underrated abilities that come along with this fruit. Firstly, it makes Smoothie effectively immune to poison, because if anything does infiltrate her rather long body, then she's just able to easily wring it out. And she even comes equipped with an ultimate form called Juicy Giant, where Smoothie can actually use her body to absorb liquid from others and become much more bigger in order to fight as a giant. So personally, I'm a big fan of my liquids. I like them where they are. But even if you do get to keep them, other extraction fruits are available, such as Charlotte Pudding's Noomi, where she plunges her hand into a victim's mind brain and quite literally rips out their memories in the form of an old film strip. There are probably some people watching this video who don't even know what that is, but that's fine. This is what movies used to be. There were long strings of grafted together pictures that we'd flick through real fast to make the pictures move. And in this case, the pictures are actual memories. And this allows Pudding to edit these memories with her special editing scissors before reinserting them. So it's the ultimate gaslight fruit, because you can basically control your target's perception of the world. And this is particularly bad in One Piece because we've recently gotten into an arc where one of the primary themes is the question of whether or not memories constitute a person, and does erasing memories effectively kill that person? The answer being peut-être in French, maybe in English. But whatever the case, this process can be quite brutal, as Vinsmoke Reiju fainted from the pain she experienced after Pudding messed with her memories. Although, sickeningly, I think it's implied that Pudding can control how much, if any, pain the target feels, because when she performed the technique on Sanji, he was perfectly fine afterwards. So that whole Reiju situation, that was malicious and uncalled for, as is everything else in this video, including the Naughty Noomi used by hers from the One Piece premiere show 2021. So naughty is a Japanese word that describes people having particularly happy behaviors, a particularly lively or cheersome individual. And what this fruit does is not that. Instead, it forces people to dance. That is the entire fruit. Hers shoots a beam, and if that beam connects, then the victim will dance uncontrollably until they die. Sort of like the the heads will roll song. Off with your head, dance, dance, dance till you're dead, etc. That's this fruit. Given that it's a beam, I should say that it's subject to the mirror weakness, which can reflect any beam type powers, but most pirates aren't vain enough to have mirrors ready to defend, except for maybe Alvida, who rather narcissistically may be hers' natural counter. But that's more of a novelty power. Yes, dancing to death, I can't imagine it's amazingly fun, but this next fruit can do some proper global damage. This is the Noomi, a love fruit, used by a quote, aphrodisiac man named Bonbon. And Bonbon, as you may have guessed, can force people to fall in love or fall in lust. He can make them like real thirsty. And its primary use was during the 2015 One Piece premiere show, where he invoked his Cupid powers on Nami and actually made her fall in love with a character who wasn't him. That's important. Bonbon can matchmake anyone, so he really is the closest thing the One Piece world has to a Cupid, which also makes it the third time in the One Piece franchise that Nami has almost been forcibly married with a wedding dress and everything. The classic example is Absalom on Thriller Bark, but it actually happened way back before then in movie 2 when the Bear King tried to marry Nami, who was coincidentally wearing a wedding dress at the same time due to other shenaniganry. But this fruit has the potential to be one of the most dangerous in the entire series. Being able to mess with feelings like love and with such a level of precision on a mass scale, look, you've got yourself global anarchy right there. You could topple governments overnight with this fruit. But for something a bit more old-fashioned, we have Hina's Autonomy, the bind fruit, which allows her to encage anybody by touching them, at which point Hina's body can manipulate itself into a wide variety of cage and shackle-like constructs. With quite a wide range as well, it's very difficult to avoid, and once you've been caught, we have yet to see anybody physically capable of escaping. This fruit is grouped with the malicious ones because the innate desire to subdue people is always a bit uncomfortable. I suppose this fruit could have been dreamed up by someone who had a strong desire for justice and to make sure that those nasty criminals are off the street. But who decides what is and is not justice? Well, Doflamingo actually tells us in One Piece. He says that justice is determined by the winners. And with this fruit, chances are you're gonna be the winner. So the question becomes, what is justice to Hina? And that would be the ability to get completely smashed on a night out and ignore your marine boyfriend who has wisely called a camel taxi to take you home. But along the same lines, the Heart of Gold special introduced us to the Jara Jaromi, the chain fruit used by Mad Treasure. Jara is the Japanese onomatopoeia for jingling and jangling. Jara da 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 da, jara da da da, jara da da da. Doesn't even sound like jangling. What is wrong, Japan? But this is a very underwhelming ability, giving Mad Treasure the power to spawn chains from his body, which are then used to do chain things, I guess. Like using them to hit people and tie people up. And really, this is the objectively worst version of Hina's fruit. And also, using it looks quite painful, because you look at the close-up shots of Treasure spawning the chains out of his hands, and they're often accompanied by spurts of blood, and it's like, ow. It's not pleasant to use or to be subject to, and comes with very few advantages in general, because chains aren't a huge deal in the One Piece world. Any half-decent pirate can either cut through them or break out of them. And hilariously, sadly, Mad Treasure's final form is wrapping himself in chains as a sort of makeshift armor, and it's all just very sad. So we can and will do better, especially since there's a whole class of devil fruits out there that don't even need chains to enact slavery. So now we meet Breed, the concerningly named user of the Autonomy, which is already bad because if you say it too quickly, it sounds like pedo. But this isn't much better than that, because this power allows Breed to turn any living being into his pet, aka slave. It's named Pet Fruit because slave fruit, well, that wouldn't be very nice now, would it? Once the vibrant green collar is equipped, Breed's slave will be forced to carry out any verbal commands given, and what's worse is that the slave remains conscious and aware of what they're doing, just unable to control it. Although this fruit is surprisingly easily countered, if someone with a collar on just plugs their ears and they become immune from Breed's commands, because you need to hear the commands in order to be controlled. In a stroke of intrigue, Breed can also use the power to collar up and take control of himself, which brings out his full potential by giving orders to himself. Sort of like the concept behind Shalnak's autopilot from Hunter x Hunter, if that's a thing you know about. If you don't, look, don't worry about it. But really, a lot of devil fruits, they can be defended when it comes to intent. Sure, they're horrible powers, but they were innocent and just being misused. I don't think this is one of them though. This one is just plain slavery. And there's a very similar canon devil fruit used by Dharma on Wano called the Noomi, which allows her to generate delicious kibidango, which, if fed to an animal, establishes a master-servant dynamic. Any animal who consumes a dango will become undyingly loyal to Dharma for the period of 1 month. Whether that is 30 days, 31 days, 28 days, even 29 days every 4 years, that is very vague. And the reason why this time limit exists is an effort from Eiichiro Oda to not make it seem like this innocent child is continuously enslaving animals to enact her will. So after a month has passed, the animals are freed, but most of them choose to continue to stay with Dharma. And this ability was a game-changing aspect of the Wano arc, because Dharma was able to use it on all of the Smile Fruit wielders, which are the permanent half-human, half-animal hybrids. It should also be noted that the dango have no nutritional value. So if you eat one, all you get is temporary slavery. Actually, if you you eat one, you get nothing at all, because it doesn't work on people. Unlike the Nori Noomi, the Ride fruit power is commanded by Vice Admiral Bluegrass, which allows her to control anyone or anything that she wishes to take a ride on. Bluegrass can choose her steed from the limitless options of the world. However, she does need to physically be on top of the target to ride it. But once on top, she can command anyone or anything to enact her transportation bidding like a good horsey, and it's likely but not confirmed that she can only command one target at a time. But for the ultimate malicious slavery-based fruit, that is always going to be Sugar's Hobby Noomi, where with one touch, Sugar transforms any living thing into a toy slave, although it's a surprisingly litigious process. After transforming someone into a fun toy, Sugar has to form a contract, and if she doesn't, then the toy retains its free will but is still stuck as a toy, so even in that case, things still kinda suck. The worst part is that after a target becomes a toy, all memories of that target are erased in the minds of everyone who previously knew them. So again, we come back to the question of what constitutes life. And in the great words of Dr. Hiroluck, when does a man die? When he is forgotten. Because he got turned into a toy, and due to very specifically worded powers, that means that everyone forgot about him, and he's dead. Dr. Hiroluck is such a wise man. But there also seems to be no limit on how many slaves Sugar can make. On Dressrosa, it was hundreds at least, but probably thousands. And in keeping with the youthful theme of playtime, this fruit also stops the user's aging, as well as the aging of anyone who became a toy, thus becoming a sort of eternal slavery where neither master nor toy will ever be able to escape. It also gets a lot worse than that. There are some even more horrifying aspects when you really research this fruit, so many that I've had to make a whole video explaining the truly morbid nature of this singular fruit. But here's a weird one. The Noko Noomi, or Shroom fruit used by Mushuru, who's a really weird character in his own right, being Wapol's non-canon brother, appearing in an alternate universe redo of the Drum Island arc. This fruit can produce and control deadly spores, emphasis on deadly. This was not developed for nice reasons, and it turns Mushuru into a sort of budget Magellan. It's a poison fruit designed to poison people. That's where we are, and it really doesn't get much more malicious than that. Or does it? Because Noko is also the name of a seahorse in the very abstract One Piece PlayStation 1 game Ocean's Dream, although he was also featured in the anime, but for some reason with a different name being Tatsu. I don't know why. But in either case, the seahorse possesses the Nemu Noomi, which traps people in a dream world and can even steal memories to power its seahorse self up. In the anime, it's never actually mentioned that this is a devil fruit power. It's just the game that does that. So it looks like a magic seahorse just popped out of nowhere. And really, it's a pretty insane devil fruit, but not at all a unique one. Because Uta from One Piece film Red has the Autonomy, a shockingly similar name to her self-ability, which is in and of itself a similar ability to Noko, who is also named Tatsu. This one is a bit different in that what it does is it transfers people's spirits into an alternate dimension known as the Uta world, and the lifeless bodies left over make it look like everyone's taking a nice nap. However, Uta can only perform this transference through singing, so it's another fruit that is readily countered by plugging up the old ears. So this could be used as a very fun magical experience, but it wasn't. Uta's plan in film Red was to sing to as many people as the world as she could, trap them all in the Uta realm, then kill herself, which would leave everyone's spirits trapped in that ultimate dimension for all eternity, ? I don't know, but it's not good. And there is another fruit that can do kind of the same thing, but with the user remaining alive, which would be Charlotte Montdeur's Noomi, which can either physically trap people within actual books, or it can trap people within an illusion of the setting of a book. Montdeur can effectively create his own holodeck by opening up any book and creating an illusion to explore the world of that story. It was a pretty criminally underused fruit, mostly tapped to stock Big Mom's library, where she keeps encyclopedias of strange living creatures within Montdeur's prison books. But if you were after something a bit more modern, then perhaps I could interest you in the Gemu Noomi, which transports people into a game world chosen by Dharma. Right, who is Dharma, you ask? Well, he's a guy, a real life guy actually, who is a member of Fishers, a Japanese YouTube channel who actually got to interview Eiichiro Oda, and they subsequently received their own spin-off manga, which is still being published to this day, featuring the group's journey through the One Piece world, with Dharma's tablet specifically being given this devil fruit. With it, Dharma can select any game to drop people into non-consensually. So long as there's a game installed on his tablet, you can go in it, which means that you can just casually drop people into Resident Evil or Outlast or something and give them a real bad time, which happened to Arlong when Dharma dropped him into a Super Smash Bros. Style game. So pretty innocent and fun, at least in the spin-off manga, but a fruit that could be used for some very malicious and not at all nice purposes. And those are the 16 malicious devil fruits in One Piece.